I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on Sonic Perspectives, we are speaking with Joel Hoekstra to talk about his new solo album, Crash of Life, due out June 16th. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Joel. Always a pleasure.
Well, right back at you. Thank you so much for taking the time yourself. I appreciate the support, brother.
Yeah, we've been talking for years and years.
I know it's like, it's as the years go by, I just appreciate it more and more. So thank you.
Thank you. And such a great guitar player and such a talented guy. So it's a pleasure. I think the CD is fantastic, or the album, I should say. I'm truly impressed how you're able to take different styles of playing and different musical styles, combine them into making a successful, cohesive sounding album. Tell me about that melting pot in your head going on, that you're able to do this and make it sound hard rock, heavy metal.
So, this is an album that kind of goes back to the first one. I've done 3 under this moniker, this Joel Hoekstra's 13, which is really a project name essentially. Because I like the stuff to sound like a band. It's not a instrumental shred album. There's not self-indulgent guitar solos all over the place. It's very much like listening to a band, but the hitch is that I write everything on it. So I write the lyrics and the vocal melodies. It's really my baby. So not really cool to those guys that call it a band and when I'm the dictator, so to speak. Yeah. So it gives me an opportunity to just have something out that's my baby, and Frontiers has been super cool with that. And so the first one, Dying to Live, was like that. There was there was a lot of variety on that record. And then they asked me the second one, they said, hey, maybe make it a little more like focused and cohesive. And so my trip is I kind of like all over the map. That's so my favorite stuff is, back in the day when you listen to a band and they're like, I always reference like Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, right? You can listen to that record and you're going from, it's just so many different styles represented. You hear all these different sides of Jimmy Page playing guitar. And that's kind of the way I pictured this stuff in the end for myself in my own little world. I know I'm not Jimmy Page, but I think, this album, it kind of went back to the model of the first one, where it's a little bit more, I hate to use scattered, it sounds derogatory, but like there's a lot of variety on this record. I think you've listened to it, so you'd agree. And so you try to find a way, I think, through making it all sound cohesive, through using the same musicians, through having the same raw tones. Yeah. It's not like I'm changing guitars or amps or, I'm pretty much a Les Paul guy, everything you hear on there. So that's kind of like the glue, is like the sonic presentation of it. But as you can hear on there, I mean, there's stuff influenced by AC/DC or Zeppelin, all the way to stuff that's like, as heavy as, some of those riffs are almost like Megadeth inspired, like on the previous single, I would say. And so running all the way to today's, the single that came out today, Torn Into Lies, that's kind of, ballady, but it kind of veers off into different territory. So Frontiers has been great with this stuff with me. They just are like, look, make an album, everything you do is good. So, they've been super cool. And so I get to do what I want. And at the end of the day, that's really what these albums are about for me.
It's interesting that you referenced Dying to Live, because I thought this one had the same level of excitement and enthusiasm as that first one that you did from a creative standpoint. Tell me about that enjoyment that you have of making guitar arrangement albums with vocals versus just the instrumentals.
Well, I'm a song guy. I mean, everybody says that, but I really am a song guy. I try to model these records after what I would want to hear as a listener, not what I would want to do as a guitarist. And to be honest, it doesn't really float my boat to do 3-minute solos and all that stuff that a lot of guitar players are vying for. Yeah. I've always been kind of the guy that preferred like a cool song, and has a really nice guitar solo in it. But like I've always been a song guy. That's always been, I guess, really the most home base for me. When people ask me my influences, I tend to name bands more than I name like guitar players. They're waiting for like this list of, prodigious guitar players, but it's usually like I talk about AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, and just start rattling off like, the bands that have had an impact on me.
Yeah, no, that's what I love most about the solo albums, is that the songs pick up on those artists that are very catchy, very melodic. They're very approachable rock songs, but they also have a grit, like a heavy metal grit. And I really, are you always looking for ways to inject hard rock, heavy metal into these songs?
I mean, that's the core of what brought me into music.
Yeah.
What lit the fire was AC/DC, and but again, my tastes, because I think as I grew up with musicians for parents, just they're pretty diverse. Like I definitely gravitated. I would say on my rock spectrum, if you were to look at it, like I definitely got into the melodic bands like Journey, Foreigner, Boston. Definitely the proggy bands like Rush and Yes. And I even kind of throw Queensryche into that category.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I had, my straight ahead rocker bands. Like, I loved Dokken when I was younger and growing up in the 80s, listening to that type of stuff. And then, but it would go all the way to the heavier stuff like Metallica, where I would listen to Ride the Lightning. And then of course, I did grow up in the guitar era where it was cool to listen to guitarists playing different styles, so I always reference like Steve Morse as like a great example of somebody that played a lot of different styles, but you get his solo album and you go, man, that's so amazing. This guy just plays, perfectly on everything. So growing up in that guitar era was a great motivator. Initially I had 3 instrumental albums out and I just kind of veered away from that world. I realized that it wasn't quite home for me.
Yeah.
So especially as I started to, have some, I don't want to sound self-important, but some degree of like success joining Night Ranger and having Rock of Ages and Trans-Siberian and then Whitesnake. And so becoming more well-known, it made a lot more sense not to be releasing solo albums that had nothing to do with that, So there's a tie-in there for sure. Stylistically, I think it's always smart as an artist not to throw your fan base a total curveball and say, check out this, reggae album from me. Well, my fans don't really want to hear a reggae album from me.
It's true. I've always been a fan of melody. Anything, the Rats, the Motley Crues, the Kisses. Growing up, and I love the melody, the riff, and the simplicity of a great riff. So I really appreciate what you're doing out there. I also think that your new singer, and correct me if I have pronouncing his name, Gershom?
Well, I say it wrong myself because, okay. I went to the label and I said, so I just want to make sure I have it straight. I said, Girish Pradhan, correct? And I think I sent a voice memo and yep, you got it. And then I heard him say his name on the announcement for the record and I went, boy, no, I'm definitely missing inflection all over the place. But, Girish resides in India and my Indian accent is non-existent. So yeah. I'm going with Girish Pradhan, which I know is heavily like Americanized, but Girish is really, really fits the bill because he's a really versatile singer. Like, he's a real chameleon. He can like go from singing super heavy stuff to singing melodic stuff. This single that came out today, Torn Into Lies, is, definitely more his melodic side. And I think was his favorite track on the record, but like on Far Too Deep, he does those, like real heavy stuff. And it's like, wow, this guy's just, he's really versatile. He can do a lot of different things. So his band, he's like mainly kind of going with this screaming Sebastian Bach kind of thing. And I thought, well, this guy's obviously outstanding, but like, when Frontiers brought him to my attention, but I said, but a lot of my stuff is like, I've always had the model of like Lou Gramm to Dio. Like I want the guy who can sing Lou Gramm, Paul Rogers, and Dio. And as Girish started doing the vocals on this, I realized like, boy, he can really do it all. So I'm delighted to have him on board.
He did a great job. How did you, being from India, how did you end up finding him?
Yeah, it was really Frontiers. I mean, they said, so, we've got this guy and, what would you think? And like I said, at first I was like, well, this guy's obviously dynamite, but like, it would be such a departure from having Russell Allen sing on the first 2. Russell's not a big screamer, high tenor screamer guy. So I thought it might be a little jarring to have somebody who sounds totally different. And so, but we started working together on it and I realized I'm like, oh no, he can really, understand singing for the song and, singing melodic and he's just got a great tone and real easy guy to work with. Very cool.
Yeah, and you have Jeff Scott Soto also doing some songs or backups on it, and their voices blend really, really well together. Very, very succinct.
Yeah,
Sometimes I had trouble even telling them apart.
it's an interesting thing on this because, Jeff he's overqualified, obviously, for like a backing vocal gig. And sometimes people get upset, like I'm dissing Jeff or something. But Jeff is, he fronts a million projects. And I think, honestly, I don't know that Jeff is looking to front my project, So it's something that we're just dear friends. And we've been working together really now since about 2010 or something like that. So it's something he does, more or less a favor to me. And the records, I think, really benefit from it. And so my main interest is like releasing a great record more so than like, stroking my own ego and saying, no, I want to sing the backgrounds on it, I go, well, look, I've got, Jeff is amazing at this. Why wouldn't I get Jeff to do this? And, we'll figure it out if it ever comes to a live touring situation. I mean, we did do one gig and it worked out well, just getting other, people that can sing in the band, and the vocals were well represented. But there's no doubt that the sound of these albums, Jeff's backing vocals play a large role in it, like more so than people realize.
He's a chameleon too. He could also conform to, to Russell and to Girish. It worked out well. I thought they blended so well together.
Yeah, Jeff's an amazing talent and like one of the top pros. There's a reason that people keep hearing his name and why he's on so many things. It's like Jeff is like, he's like clockwork. If he says, all right, okay, so that track, I'm going to have that for you Tuesday, look for it around 8 p.m. He said, I'm going to be doing this and I need a day to rest my voice or something. And then I'll probably cut it from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and look for it around that time. And like 8 p.m. you ding. Wow. It's just the level of professionalism is like off the charts, and and how cool he is about it all, like easy to work with, So he's exemplary with all that. I mean, I was telling him that the other night. We spent some time at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp and I said, look, you're obviously a mega talent, but I have to tip my cap to you on this because like not every mega talent guy has that level of professionalism where they say, expect it at this time, I'll probably be doing it from this time to this time. And Jeff's just like, clockwork, man.
I agree. With Whitesnake being on a hiatus, and I know how busy you are with so many projects, are you thinking about possibly taking this out on the road at any time?
I mean, I would love to. I think it would be a financial disaster for me.
Wow.
I have to be willing to like invest, which I'm not beyond doing. But I think about, if I'm going to take rock legends like Vinny Appice on the road, I'm not going to throw them in a Motel 6. You know what I mean?
Right.
So but the bottom line is travel accommodations and like, how do you get that done? And when you're the guy, that kind of, it falls on you a lot more. It's a lot easier to be the guy like hired in a band and be the side guy because, you get the paycheck and whoever is fronting it is kind of more or less responsible for the overall success of it. And the bottom line is it's more my artistic outlet than anything. I'd love to tour it. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It'd be amazing. I got to figure out, what that would look like, what kind of time length, people's schedules, what kind of money we'd be talking about me losing. I'm serious.
Yeah, that's a little rough. That's hard to do then. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, so if I'm out playing acoustic gigs with Brandon Gibbs, which I've been doing a lot of right now, when people look at the logistics of that, you can see, well, we got two people there. There's no crew. There's no anything, we put our scrims up behind us and we do our set. And so it's pretty easy to get out on the road and have it make financial sense for everybody and have a good time. Joel Hoekstra's 13 would inevitably not make financial sense. Like it would be like something I'd get out there that would cost me more than I would make. Especially because, seeing Joel Hoekstra's 13 on the door, it's not like seeing Whitesnake on the marquee or whatever, right? It's not, I'm not going to do these and have 5,000-6,000 people show up. It's, inevitably probably like a club thing or something. So
I think people realize that, people just want to hear you live. People love you, but people don't know all the financial, the logistical aspects that go into making this a financial success. So it's nice and refreshing to hear you say that. At the same time, disappointing that it's tough, and I get it.
I mean, Look, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I don't make music for money, I mean, anybody that got into making music to become rich is like they could have had a much easier life doing it with anything else.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's so much work to, everything else is very cleanly laid out for people. You go to school, you get your degree, you get your entry level job, and you advance and get promotions, and your life is kind of like laid out for you. And music is like the Wild West, we're kind of like, there is no sick pay or vacation pay and all that kind of stuff. We don't
Benefits.
it's none of it exists, it's like, it's really like no matter what, get out there and do it. And that's cool. That's the path I've chosen. I chose it when I was 11 years old to do that. From the time I picked up a guitar, I was pretty much like, this is what I'm going to do. So, I'm really lucky to have gotten this far doing that. And, but, also being somebody who, I have a family. It's like I have to be able to think about those kind of things too. You can't just go treat yourself like you're 21 years old and like, let's go party and take it out and like have a good time. And that goes for the rest of the guys too. They're not up for that. Everybody's like, hey, wait a minute. I'm Vinny Appice, played with Black Sabbath, man. I can't take that guy and like, stick him in, a middle seat on some Spirit Airlines or something like that, a Motel 6 or whatever,
Sleeping in a van.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, just being able to treat everybody the right way, which is, something I like to do when I do the records is, make sure everybody's compensated and they like compensated to the point where they're like, hey, Joel's nice to work for. He treats you with respect and pays you. And, I'm not grinding on people. Hey, anyway, you could do it for this for me, and that kind of stuff. It just, hey, look, how much, what do you want? And like, okay, cool, done. So just try to treat everybody with the same kind of respect you'd hope to get, like when people hire you to play on their records, so, but that's the reality of the music business. And a lot of that is, it's very complicated. There's, nowadays it's, socially acceptable to be a part of 4 or 5 things. Like I am recording projects and things that I'm playing live with, and it's almost become the norm, Thanks, Mike Portnoy. Thank you, Mike, for like making that like the norm, because that's kind of what it takes. I do know some guys that are part of like, very successful bands or were original members in very successful bands, and they can do the one thing. And that's great. God bless them, man. I think a lot of us would love that, that are doing like 4 or 5 things, because it's hard to be on top of all the different music and show up and play like your very, very best on it all. It's definitely a lot easier to have one thing. And the fans have been, wanting that and saying, how come it's not this? And, I suppose the answer is that it's just not financially reasonable for anybody to do that anymore. The money's just not there, like off of streaming and off of what people make off of live shows. So we do what we do. I'm not honestly not complaining, because it's to be able to get as far as I've gotten as a guitarist and do all the stuff I've done. And I've really gotten to live my dream. That sounds so cheesy, but like, dude, I was 11 going like, this is what I want to do. That's like, I want to be a baseball player kind of stuff,
Yeah, so living your dream is important, and you got to do it. And that's, and you do it well. And you are right. Mike Portnoy and also George Lynch really set the bar for like, how many projects could I be in simultaneously? So yes, I get it. And, it's financially secure. One time George told me I have to be in like 100 different projects for like one of them to hit. So, he's got to keep doing what he has to do to make money, to pay his bills, is what he told me. And, it's important to him to be involved. And hopefully the good comes out of the one of them.
In the end, the plus side to this from the musician standpoint, not the fan standpoint, is it actually does make the musicians better, because it keeps you working all the time. You're not just kind of like, well, I'm off tour, we're not making a record for 6 months, so why don't I just, watch TV for 6 months? It's like, my every day with me is like, hours and hours of guitar. Then there's just really never a day off ever in sight. I always have something, immediately after this interview, I'm going to be right into it. So, that's great. It makes us all better musicians. So, for as many problems as there are with it, there are positives to it as well.
Yeah. I was wondering, that was one of my things. I watch, I follow you on social media. You're somewhere all the time doing something. How did you find the time to write and record this album?
So as you know, I mean, you've done a lot of this. It takes a while to have it see the light of day. I mean, I feel like I was recording my guitar parts last summer, maybe like July or August. So it's a standard pattern of me giving the song ideas to Vinny. The drums go down first.
Right.
And then really from there it goes to Tony. So once you have your drums and bass, some things can happen simultaneously if people are tracking remotely. Obviously, the one thing that needs to happen is lead vocals need to be down before backing vocals, right? Jeff can't do backing vocals to nobody. So, but as far as like, whether or not Derek Sherinian is cutting his keyboards to all of my guitar parts, it's sort of irrelevant, like what Derek gives me, I can write additional guitar parts around or vice versa. So things can kind of happen in different order once you've got the drums and the bass. One thing that's different with me with these is because I write the lyrics and the melodies, is I basically sing the whole record too, as a guide vocal for whoever's going to be the lead vocalist. So that's kind of a pain in the ass. Frankly, I'm not exactly Pavarotti. So, I lay it down, and then, they obviously just do Russell or now Girish on this record, just sing it a whole lot better than me, when it comes time to do the album.
But it's incredible that you have the time to write these, to do all the business end of it, of getting the record deal, then figuring out the songs, coordinating with the artists, that are going to be performing on it, and doing these interviews and then releasing it. It's a lot of work. So it's a pretty incredible feat.
It is a lot of work.
To write good songs. You're not writing songs.
Especially with Joel Hoekstra's 13. I think you find that like every band or project has various levels of time and commitment and effort that go into it. And, for me, that's always interesting too. Like say, with Revolution Saints, that's something where I'm not necessarily involved in the writing. I was like one of the outside writers that Alessandro had contacted when it was still Doug Aldrich and Jack Blades in the band, and I contributed thinking that Doug would be playing it,
Yeah.
And then oddly enough, as it worked out, by the time the album was happening, I had actually joined. But that's obviously less of a commitment on the writing end of things. It's more or less like your artistic expression comes down to how you perform parts, and you do create parts like guitar parts, that they're not, it's not so scripted that it's like play these notes, but things are in place, and those records require a lot less effort than something like this where I'm literally writing like every single thing. Iconic, I contribute the guitar riffs to that project. So the way that's done with Michael is like he works with George Lynch, where I give him unarranged guitar riffs. And even that takes away some of the effort, because Michael's the one to put together the arrangement itself. I'll give him the riffs, Michael arranges, goes to Alessandro and Nathan to write lyrics and vocal melodies. Michael helps a little bit with that as well. So that's a little bit more of a collaborative thing. And, for me, it's just fun to hear the different results that come out of these different things. Right. And like, hey, it's fun for me to be on an album too, that I didn't write every single thing on, but it is nice to have these records, because this is like, they're my baby, and that they're, everything is mine on it.
Yeah.
Now that being said, everybody's free to make up their own parts, Like, so just like I do for Revolution Saints, if I'm giving this to Vinny or to Tony or to Derek, very rarely do I ever tell them like, hey, would you mind doing this here? Like, I pretty much, whatever they give me is like, cool. That's why you hire people, you hire people so they can play like themselves, and, you hear their artistic expression on it. And, that does paint the song. That is a big part of it.
And their flavor, they bring their flavor into it too.
Exactly. So, if you hire different people, especially with a guy like, Vinny, I keep talking about Vinny today, but, Vinny has a tendency to play the unexpected. He's not like, if you hire a session drummer, they're always cognizant of, okay, so there's a space between the vocal right there, maybe a fill setting up the chorus or something. And then there's certain guidelines that like every traditional session drummer would do.
Mhm.
And Vinny tends to throw all that stuff out the window and kind of come from this totally different place, which I love because it gives the project some grease, it makes it legitimate classic rock. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like, a bunch of session guys just kind of like phoning it in.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it sounds like it's important to compartmentalize everything that you have to do, get done, and you do it successfully. David Coverdale put Whitesnake on hiatus from touring. Are you guys talking about or music, new records or songs?
I'm gonna go hang with David actually in a couple weeks, and spend like a week or two with him. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. He's been floating doing live dates and interviews.
Right.
I've read those just like you do online.
Yeah, I've heard everything,
So
right?
we're in contact pretty much daily, like the band on a thread, but it's all about humor. And at the end of the day, we all know that's up to David. So it's sort of out of place for any of us to prod and be like, hey, so what do you think, man? Like it's like David, if David wants to get out and play some dates, I'm there to do it. In the meantime, like I'm really happy that I've had 9 years there and we have a good relationship, like a good friendship, and like I'm still a part of the band. And if David's got something he wants me to come out and work on with him, like I'm about to go do, that we can do that and hang out and have a good time. And that's a very important chapter in my career to have. So we're in a good place. We have a good relationship and a good rapport, and I'd love to keep it that way. So I mean, if he wants to do live dates, I'm obviously there, and if he chooses not to do live dates, then obviously be a little sad, but like I would never ever blame him for making that choice. He's totally entitled to make that choice. David's he's done all there is to do really with rock. I mean, he really is, not to be corny, but I mean, I don't throw the word legend around too lightly, but David's he's a rock legend, man. I mean, so whatever he wants to do, especially when it comes to Whitesnake, that's I'm a guy who's been in the band 9 years out of what, like close to 50 years of that band being a brand name and being something that, so I know my place, like but as far as input and things like that, or being a part of the band, David's he's really, really cool with that, a lot cooler than people would think, as far as being open-minded to what players want to do. He really has always encouraged me to play like myself and try to get the best out of me. He's really been a fantastic boss this past 9 years. So I'm all for continuing it in whatever path he chooses to go, I guess is
it depends what interview you read with him. It's either touring or music or a group of people. So yeah, I'm hoping when you go out there, we hear something new. I think it'd be wonderful to get some new stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, in all honesty, man, I mean, I wouldn't be able to give you the scoop even if I had a scoop, but I don't have a scoop. Like if I had a scoop, I'm not holding one. So I've got really nothing for you there.
Could you give us the scoop on what happened at the basketball game with Nuno Bettencourt?
Nobody bumped him or anything. He just came down wrong on it. And it was incredibly depressing, so oddly enough, leading into that cruise, Nuno had texted me and said, hey man, I'm going to do this set with Gabriella, who I work with in TSO. And he said, but I want to play djembe. He said, so I want you to play guitar. And I thought, well, this is interesting, and I felt flattered that Nuno thought of me, obviously, he's Nuno Bettencourt. So I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you, man. So, we put this set together, and as luck would have it, that set was about an hour and a half after the game. So when that happened, it was like this, can of worms of like, number one, is he all right? Is this something he's going to walk off? Is this something that nobody really knew, and I got back to my room and I'm sitting there in a basketball outfit, drenched in sweat, going, I got to get in stage clothes and like up to play this set. And so I'm like, we playing? Are we, is it canceled? And I just sort of decided with Gabby, I said, look, why don't you and I meet up there and we'll play the set 2-piece, and if Nuno can make it, cool. And then Nuno ended up coming up there on crutches, and he played the djembe like sitting down, and it was just really cool to vibe with him and just jam with him a bit. Nuno's amazing. He's an amazing, talented guy, and it actually meant a lot to me that he thought of me for to somebody to ask to play guitar when he's not going to play guitar. That
intimidating, right?
I mean, yeah. I wanted, obviously I wanted Nuno to think like, hey, Joel did a good job and played well. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, there's someone in the room that knows what's up.
Yeah.
So, there's no slipping one by him, man. If you play a wrong chord, he's gonna know. So,
is he better? Is he okay? Have you spoken to him?
Actually, he just texted me like 5 minutes ago, because I texted him earlier today saying I just wanted things to settle down. But I know he made an announcement on his Instagram just talking about the details, and it was pretty severe. I mean, I think he tore his ACL, like a full tear, and tore his meniscus and sprained his MCL. So it was, which is just insane, because it's like, it was just him literally just coming down wrong. Nobody bumped him. Nobody shoved him. Yeah, it was just kind of like one of those freak things, man, and, I know he's a professional. He feels awful that he participated in that, but, we were pretty light contact on that game. It's not like we were all trying to pretend we were NBA players bashing each other around and stuff like that, so I think it's just really one of those terrible freak accidents that happen that Nuno, he's a consummate professional. He just feels like he let the fans down and by doing that. But honestly, I mean, he's just trying to have some fun and play a little basketball. I mean, it's just like one of those things that like it's not like we were mixing it up and playing really rough. So I think it's just a freak thing that happened. I feel terrible for him.
I was thinking in my mind too, it's like everything I do at my age now is like, is this going to cause me any harm? Is this going to hurt me? Is digging that hole, putting that tree worth me being, hurting my back, or should I just pay the landscaper to do it? So, it's a challenge. Thank God he didn't hurt his hand in any way, shape, or form, and
I've definitely, veered away from a lot of things like that. Same deal. Anything with my hands, man, I'm kind of like, I'm really cautious of.
Like a surgeon. Right.
Yeah, you're never going to catch me out like, roller skating or ice skating and stuff like that, where you fall and could break your wrists or, I mean, that would be game over for a while. So, I definitely try to be careful. Basketball is my one weakness, but I do try to keep that at a level where it's not like, hey, this game is life or death. I mean, I'll get out there and run with people and try and enjoy playing a little bit, but I do try to guard my hands.
Yep. I remember meeting Eddie Van Halen in 2009 NAMM, and before you met him, there was a person in between you and Eddie who says, "Don't shake his hand, fist bump him, tap him on the shoulder, but just don't touch his hand." What I mean? And I got it. This is the master. So you gave him a nice gentle fist bump, and it was like an honor to meet the guy. So I get the importance of taking care of yourself, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I love the album. I love everything you do. So I'm hoping something good comes from Whitesnake, and I wish you all the success with this album.
Cool, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot.
You have a great day, okay?
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.